I have some questions for you about art and peace and all that fun stuff. So, first
Mm,
one's about you, and I was wondering if you could tell us how you got interested in art in the first place.
mm, yes. I get that question quite often. Um, what I like to say is that both of my parents were artists, so there were just art supplies around the house, right? It wasn't getting into art. And I love to talk about this. Kids don't need to get into art, right? They'll get into it. They're going to get into those supplies. And I did the same thing, but my parents never discouraged it. So when I was looking at a charter school near me in Bethlehem, saw that they had a visual arts program, and I had been doing art, just drawing in every class, getting in trouble for it though, people calling me that artsy kid, and I was like, okay. Um, so I dove into this charter school and I went as a visual art major, and that's Pennsylvania, sorry, that's Lehigh Valley Charter Arts in Bethlehem now. And it was so professional, it was so serious, and that was just where I came to thrive, was dissecting the visual world and being so passionate about the visual world and creating artistic expressions that would reflect that. And that itself has grown to be the so much more that I'm really excited about.
That's awesome. So you just kind of got into the supplies. I've seen kids do that. I saw a kid yesterday just get all over some paint. That was
Yeah,
pretty fun.
yeah, yeah.
Um, how did you end up knowing that this was like your calling in life?
It's so funny. I think about that question now. At the time, though, I was going to this school. I got so I just want to say engaged. It was my life. It still is. And when I heard of the college I eventually went to, Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art, I was like, yes, that's the only one I'm applying to. And it was. And everybody, my parents were like, come on. And I was like, I know, I know, I know. There's other stuff I can do, but this is the one. And I never thought about it further than that. So now I'm like, kind of a fantastic thing that, I like to think that my inner self chose for myself before I could really overthink it too much. Now here I am, just noting like I've made this dedication to it out of love and passion. I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, so it sounds like you just knew, like maybe art called you. You didn't call art. It just
Yeah,
kind of
it
happened.
called me. It just was already there. It was already
Yeah.
happening. And I think so many people's parents are like, that's nice, honey, but what are you going to do? And my parents didn't really do that. They were like, yeah, you're an artist. You're an artist. I was like,
Yeah.
yep. My grandmother, too, I grew up and she would always be like, we're all artists here. She was an oil painter. So it runs in the family.
Beautiful. So it's who you are and your family just knew that.
Yeah.
Great. So what kind of arts do you do?
Yes. So my main love is oil painting. That's just for the visceral kind of natural process of it. I think working with organic material and just smelling and feeling it, you're really, really present with it. And it's just really thick. And so I really love doing paintings in oil paint, but primarily landscapes. That's something that I think happens as just a natural continuation of when I'm in my flow, right? I do it a lot out in nature. I plein air paint a lot. So for me, that's just the nicest Saturday afternoon imaginable. I'll spend all day out there. I also really, I'm super enthusiastic about all elements of the visual world. So I love figure painting. I love still life. And that really comes into where I love teaching so much because it becomes this process of breaking down, examining, putting back together with curiosity and play and bringing community into it, bringing others into it, sharing with them what it can be, everything like that. But I would call my art, it's technically considered fine art. And, sure, but, for me, it's a little bit more just about the natural aspect of it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank
So
you.
what does art mean to you?
Mm. That's such a question, isn't it? I was asked that in every interview for every art school I've ever gone to, and, my answers stayed pretty similar, which was that it's an expression, of course. Um, and I think today it's grown, and today I tend to get quite abstract with it, and I feel that we are art, our existence here. Art is so much. play, interaction, curiosity, transformation, and just all of the different things that can happen with different components of what it our reality. I mean, I know that that sounds wild, but I really consider cooking to be incredibly adjacent to painting. Um, I really like driving. I really like woodwork. I really like different veins of chemistry. Really, they're all such part of the same coin. And so, what art is to me, like, I think it comes down so much to intention, and it comes down so much to, I like to remind people it's a place to go for yourself. It's a place you can go for yourself. So that's really kind of sitting at the core. It's curiosity. It's doing this thing. It's natural for us. Even people who say they're not creative, I like to say like, you chose what you wore this morning. You chose your hairstyle for a reason, your earrings for a reason. Those were all creative decisions, weighing a lot of different options around you. It's really fast decision making. I think it's just a beautiful metaphor for like our experiential, you know, experience. Yeah.
Beautiful. So that leads into my next question, which is about peace. So let's talk about inner peace.
Yeah.
How does art lead to inner peace for people?
Right. So art, I think, can provide a mirror, like a lot of things. And especially if you're up against a blank canvas, and especially if you don't paint often and you haven't painted before. And it can be all of the things that life is, which is beautiful. It can be difficult. It can be frustrating. And the inner peace occurs as we navigate those decisions. And to me, the inner peace occurs especially if there's any consistency to your practice, and it doesn't need to be frequency or intensity. But if you're seeing from each session to each session the ways you've improved, and if you're able to say, I'm not happy with that, but I did improve with that. All right, pat myself on the back. Those moments, I believe, are the cherished, really authentic, built and dug for inner peace that you can't buy and that you can't really, get to easily. It's really kind of the meat and bones, I think, of like it's a strange, scary thing to be in a body alone a little bit. And that becomes an extension when you're with a canvas. You're like, wait a minute. I saw all this stuff on Pinterest, but now that it's me and these paints and this canvas, what if I mess up? What if it's not good enough? And that's usually the biggest block in the way rather than any type of skill or talent. And people go in those first few classes through the same cycle of, everyone's is different, but it's a cycle of seeing that this is a path that will require you to be talking with yourself and listening to yourself. And it won't just be easy steps to complete and then get a golden star, but they come out feeling that deep fulfillment, right? With like a piece that you made and the resources and ability and comfort to make a piece that you want to make and all that. Like an empowerment. I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited to explore it. I'm really curious about that part of the process.
Definitely. So it seems like art, in your experience, can help people to deal with any self-doubts, and they can really get past that to
Yeah.
this pure flow state, which brings peace.
Yeah, I think art is a really, dare I say, sort of safe when you think about it, place to tackle some of this because you can be by yourself. You don't ever have to show it to anyone. It doesn't ever have to go anywhere. It can be a continuation of the natural cycle. It needed to be destroyed. It can be cathartic to destroy it. But either way, you can address these things in this place where there's sort of a grounding element, which is that you're within your body, you're working through your hands, this is material on paper. And we know that we're turning ideas into physical things here. There's an absolute, thing that happens when you express them naturally, I think, like speaking or any other modes of expression. Once it's out, it continues its place in that flow cycle, I believe. But it also is, I think, mirroring probably what takes place in most practices and most professions and most inner conflicts is problems that we don't know how to solve am wondering and hoping if we'll do it correctly or if there is a correct way and saying, weighing all the options and saying, well, maybe that would make sense, but for this situation, I don't think it will. Or maybe saying, I thought it would go this way, but my gut wants to do this. The painting wants to do this. The person in the problem wants to do this. There's an element of adaptability. I think it really just the creative state is such a natural flow state. So if we can facilitate ourselves to get in there, I think a lot of the time people are just takes them a minute to quiet their mind down. And once they got that, they're in it.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would happen if everybody quieted their mind down enough to be
Yeah.
creative and do art? I mean, I wonder what that would do to the world.
And if it was normalized, that's the
Yeah.
thing that really starts to make me think because I was fortunate enough in school that they were like, yes, this is your value, your time. You are absolutely valid for prioritizing this. Yet people say coming to class, like, oh, I could never do that. And they want to make fun of themselves or feel a little silly about it because it's not normalized to try something you don't know how to do or, to feel empowered to do it and be proud of yourself, even if it's not super impressive or like worthy of, I don't know, getting social media views. And I'm a real big believer that the loudest voice in the room doesn't mean it's the most important one. And like the little whispers that are kind of happening all along, I think art really, for lack of better words, can like hear all of their different notes and turn it into a song rather than a statement or any one big thing. We're always like looking for one big truth, but art is just nuanced. And it's just about,
Helps you maybe to see the big picture.
yeah, and to meet you where you're at, and for you to meet it where it's at, and for no measurable quantification as to whether you did good enough or not. It just is. And like that's always good enough. I tell everyone that's perfect.
Great. So I wonder if you think that art, if people were to do art, there could be more peace between people and groups.
Right. I do believe so. I do believe that if it was more normalized to have a practice in where you go for yourself, I think it improves internal boundaries, your energetic boundaries of where you end and the world starts and how that can change. I think it really would kind of give us this sense of stability that we somewhat lack and look for in the very easily offered avenues of it.
Beautiful. So I'm aware that in addition to all the painting courses that you teach, you also teach a popular course on art journaling. So I was hoping you could tell us about that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it's so exciting to me because it's perfectly in vein with this exact, last question you asked. Because I feel that art journaling is something that I found that I would describe as a practice up front, meaning that it just continues and I follow it as it goes, and it's a place I go for myself. So a lot of what I was saying about making art, but I'm really excited about it because it doesn't take much. I think that it really symbolizes the entirety of this enterprise as you can get any journal. I like to get kids' sketchbooks because I go through them really, really quickly. And they're just a few bucks. And you can make this a space that you tell yourself, no one's ever going to see it, right? It's never going to leave my bedroom. Or I'm going to try this thing here and just sort of keep going back. Doesn't have to be every day, every week, but whenever I do go back here, I'm just going to keep it chronological. And like, to me, the really important thing is to think of it as your space and find a way to help yourself feel that. So in my class, I like to start by having people customize a cover. That's how it started for me. But what it became is what felt like my brain on paper. It felt like a place that I could put down a lot of my worries and my stresses, pick them up, trust that they are, and that they're there, not scrambled, to trust myself in the past, to trust that I know that I put it all there for myself. So it kind of reinforced with a sort of structure, the way in which I think the spirit of creativity has like a running narrative in our life. So I would take the journal with me all the time. That's just the way I do it. I would do paintings and drawings in it, or I would paste in receipts and stickers or ticket stubs from fun events, or just write about funky little things and um, let it become a place for myself to go. And I found that the journal itself was just this live document that just felt like I've got a whole trunk of them now. I'm like, I thought that was a super cool thing because offering that class was a great way to see the ways everyone finds their own version. But I think it's way more successful to an individual if they find a version that works for them and if they are given by, the teacher the resources and information about what to keep an eye out for, but they're told how to make themselves this structure rather than being given one. Because then it's actually adapted to them, then they'll actually use it. People would always feel guilty. They're like, "Oh, well, I haven't, oh, I haven't." And that's, I think, just goes back to the way that we act as our own biggest roadblock and wondering if we're going to do it correctly or any of that.
Right. So it sounds again that art journaling is another artistic opportunity to kind of get out of this self-limiting thinking and into the flow.
I would say so, and it's also it's again just emphasis on the word safe. I don't say emphasis on the word safe, but it's a safe and it's a secure, consistent place, and that's a little bit, I think, less scary than buying yourself a set of paint and a huge canvas. But to have a super flimsy little sketchbook, but just tell yourself like, "This is my silly place," or anything like that. Um, Inviting a partner in to do a page with you. I've seen people do stuff like that. Different ways of making it connect to you and your life. Because, we really do, we thrive on so many connections. And so a practice feels pretty foreign until it's got all of these different little associations and ways that it serves you. It's really here to serve us.
Amazing. So I have one last question for you. So
Yes.
what advice do you have for people who really want to do some type of visual art,
Yeah.
maybe fine art, but they've never done it before? They're kind of like,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Yeah, it's so interesting. That's become really the place that I'm so excited and curious. And so through running a lot of different classes, working with a lot of different levels of experience, my biggest advice is to think of the way a little kid acts if they tear into a box of crayons. Like I'm talking little enough that it's all over your walls. And remember that that's, I think, the purest way of embracing and enjoying our creative spirit. You're not here to make a painting that looks like the object. I say that like a broken record, but what I really try to remind people is that it's not talent and skill and doesn't make you good or bad or anything to draw like the thing looks or whatever. The magic is happening as we are witnessing and perceiving visual information. And our brains are going through all of these super fast processes to know what it's seeing and to make associations. And we're all seeing something different, feeling something different. And the magic really happens as you translate that to an expression. It's all going in and you're letting it come out. So when people say, I don't know how to draw a stick figure, I like to show them I have a tremor hand. I don't do straight lines well. A stick figure, I say go for your stick figure, but get even looser and just give her some good scribbles, or maybe get a good, color you really like, scribble it, and then sitting and looking at your colors and going, "What other color do I really like? I really like this one." And to really find places that you're looking at where it's engaging you and where you're seeing those decisions, because I'm so curious about this. We don't decide what we like. We all look at different things and we might paint the same landscape and I'll say I loved the sky and they'll say I just could not get over the grass. And you show the world that when you paint it. And you show the world, a piece of you. And you deserve to. That's what I want to tell people. You deserve to. It is it to make silly art is silly and fun. To make perfect good, good looking art, overrated to make a thing look like the thing. It's never you're not racing the camera. You're here to be with yourself.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank
these
you.
very positive words on art and expression and flow and overcoming stuff and peace.
Thank you so much. And
Mhm.
yeah, this was, I think, beautiful for the intermission of my practice because really the questions you asked got right to the core of it. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity to extrapolate on a lot of that and, yeah, maybe offer people another perspective through which to see the creative practice.